Go ahead and get us started. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you with us today. We are recording our session, so thank you for joining us. To save bandwidth and for the recording, we do ask that our attendees turn off their cameras and mute themselves unless they are giving the presentation. I will be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions, you can put them in there and I'll share them with the presenters. Dawn Wibble is doing tech for us today. Thank you, Dawn. As I said, we are recording the session. Alice will share it in a following email in the coming days. If you're uncomfortable with your name showing, you can change your name to anonymous and then private message Dawn with your name for your attendance. Also, if your Zoom name doesn't match the name you registered with, please change it and let Dawn know. I'm going to go ahead and do our land acknowledgement. Texas Children in Nature Network is headquartered in Austin, and as such, I'm on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Comanche, and Sauna people. Our ongoing colonial presence on Indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization. The work we do through the Texas Children in Nature Network is one small step towards that effort. Yeah. To learn, I'm going to put a little bit in the chat in just a minute about land acknowledgements and about those people groups. And I'd like to go ahead and welcome our speakers today. Doctors Laura Allen and Courtney Crim are at Trinity University, and Courtney also serves on the board of the Texas Children in Nature Network. They're also certified forest therapy guides, and they're going to be leading us through a forest therapy walk this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, good morning. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Courtney and I are professors at Trinity University in San Antonio, and we've been working with the healing elements of nature for quite a while with our research team, doing research with that, as well as a course that we teach around these principles. And we, as Sarah said, we're also both certified forest therapy guides through the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. And so we're going to be guiding you through a series of invitations for the next couple of hours.
So we get a lot of feedback sometimes on like, how in the world can you do this virtually? It doesn't quite fit for some people's mental models of what a shared forest walk might be. So just to let you know up front, we did a lot of our training in this way, and it actually does work very well. It allows you to be in your own space. So we're going to ask that during today's presentation, or really not a presentation, during our session together, you find a place just either by a window where you can look out. Here it's kind of chilly outside, so it feels wonderful. You can find a space outside. Hopefully you're in a backyard or a park. And if you have time, you may want to make sure you also have like a little cup of coffee or some water with you. We'll be using that at the end of our forest bathing walk, and you'll need to have that available if possible. But kind of as Sarah said, there will be gaps during the webinar where nothing is happening online. It's where actually you will have your video off and everybody will be muted, and you'll be doing your own version of the invitation wherever you are independently. So there will be those quiet times, and then we'll be calling you back in to the Zoom space. Just work with us on that. It does work virtually, but it just looks a little bit different.
So we're going to give you some background on the land where we are. There were peoples here in San Antonio for many, many years. There's evidence of more than 11,000 years ago, there were people here. Some of the first written records we have are of the Cahutican peoples, and they were hunter-gatherers in the South Central Texas area. One group that's particularly well known here are the Payayas. But we also had Lipan Apache, Comanche, and Tonkawa in this area. They were drawn to the rich waters of the San Antonio River and its tributaries, and they established communities along the river before the Spanish were here in the 1700s. So no matter where we are, we have the responsibility to acknowledge our indigenous connections, as well as the histories of dispossession and forced removal that have allowed growth and survival for our current societies. So first, we'd like to tell you a little bit about the history of forest therapy and where it came from. So it started in Japan back in the 1980s and 90s, and they realized that this is when their tech economy was really booming, and they were having high instances of diseases such as cancer and autoimmune disease. So the government decided they needed to commission a bunch of studies to figure out some things they could proactively do around this. And one of the studies that they commissioned asked the question, what happens when people go out in forested environments? Because if you know Japan, they have lots of forest. And so they found something really interesting. They found that a chemical called phytoncides is something that trees give off to help keep themselves healthy. When a tree has fungus or something's attacking the tree, they give off these phytoncides. And what they discovered was, as humans, we have a very special reaction when we either inhale those phytoncides or absorb them through our skin. It increases a certain type of white blood cell called an NK, or a natural killer cell. And those cells are known to kind of go throughout our body and target tumors and different things to help increase our immunity. So the Japanese thought this was pretty incredible, that going into the forest could just be seen as a type of preventive medicine for a serious disease. So they called this Shinrin-Yoku, which translates to forest bathing. I know that sounds like you're running around naked. That's what I thought the first time I heard that. So in the US, we tend to use the term forest therapy more. And that does not mean that we, as like Courtney and I, are not therapists, but the idea is we are guides and the forest is the therapist for us. So as of now, Japan has more than 60 forest therapy trails that they use frequently for health. So in the last decade or so, the research on the benefits of being outside of natural environments has just really boomed. We've had a lot of correlational research for quite a while, but now we're finding causal research because we were able to connect some of the things we're doing, not only with cortisol and blood and things like that, but also with fMRI, functional MRIs, brain scans of people before and after they experienced time outside. And our research team at Trinity, which is made up of Courtney and myself and 3 other professors, have been looking at this for the past, I guess, about 5 years, and have found similar results with our students, significant high reductions in rumination, tension, anxiety, depression, and things like that. And we are working with them because the college age population is very, as we know right now, is some of the most stressed that we have in our country. So that's some of the work we're doing. So I'll tell you about a little bit about the process of forest therapy, what it's going to look like. This is all about slowing down and connecting with nature, or what we would like to call the more than human world. This is not a hike. Our goal, or your goal, will not be to get from point A to point B. And it's not a nature walk. We are not going to identify anything today, hopefully, because I would not be able to do that very well. So we want you to just slow down, and wherever your space is, hopefully you can be outside somewhere in some green space. Courtney and I are in my backyard, which actually backs up to a nature trails. And I think you might be able to hear some of the birds. We filled up the bird feeder this morning, which quickly goes down about every single day. So you can hear some of those. We're going to provide a series of invitations that Courtney mentioned earlier. And they're specifically called invitations. So if you don't feel comfortable with something we say, you may feel free to adapt it or modify it so it works for you. So we're going to introduce you to this practice. Typically it is done in person, but as Courtney mentioned, it does work virtually. We did a lot of these during the pandemic. We've even done one for Texas Children in Nature. And hopefully this can be really beneficial for you. I also just want to say, the first time that we did this, Courtney and I had to, I guess it was about 4 or 5 years ago, there were no certified guides in Texas. So we went to Arizona to experience this ourselves, just to see what is this all about. And Courtney was really into it. And I was like, I don't know about this. I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this right, because I was so, in our society, we're so about doing things correctly and right. And especially as professors, we're like, we wanted to just get it completely right. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And if it's a little uncomfortable and this is the first time you've done it, that's okay. And that's normal. It's a practice. And so the more you do these types of things, the more comfortable you get with them. So it's fine if you feel that way. So after we give you an invitation, as Courtney said, we're going to ask you to mute yourself, complete the invitation, and then we'll call you back with the sound of a drum. And Courtney's going to show you what that's going to sound like. So make sure that you can hear us after you've muted yourself. We'll call you back, and then we'll ask you to respond in the chat to what's called our sharing circle. We'll just ask you a prompt about what you are noticing. So during any of this, if you have questions or you get stuck or you're not quite sure what to do, please just put something in the chat and we'll do our best to respond to that.
So we're, again, very honored that you chose to be here on a Saturday morning, and we are inviting you to be open to this experience. For some of you, it may seem very natural, like Laura said. For some of you, it may be a little bit of a stretch. So we ask that you give it a try and be here in the moment, and let the guiding kind of help you immerse yourself into this experience. So the first invitation that we start with is called Pleasures of Presence. And as we start this one, again, you can videos off, so you can kind of just let yourself move around, find a space that's comfortable. It can be in a chair, it can be out in the grass, it can be by a window, any place that you find where you can kind of just settle in and be close to some greenery in some way. And just wherever you can hear me. So even if you walk away from your computer, that's fine, as long as you can hear the voice. This is the only invitation that's actually guided throughout. So I will be giving you prompts throughout, and you can listen and respond in a way that is most comfortable for your body. So to start, you may want to close your eyes. If you're uncomfortable with that, you may just want to soften your gaze with something around you, but whatever feels good to you. Some people actually even like to do standing, so you can stand or settle yourself on the ground. But just before we get really going, just make sure you've got yourself settled in a comfortable position. Okay, now once you're settled, we invite that you just take a few breaths in and out. These aren't really heavy exercise or yoga breaths necessarily, but just your own gentle breathing in a rhythm that's very comfortable to you. And let yourself notice what it feels like. See if you can notice your rhythm of inhaling and exhaling in a way that feels most natural to you. And notice what the sensation of breathing feels like as the breath enters your body and that gift of oxygen fills your lungs. Then somehow, miraculously, your body knows what to do with that oxygen and takes it to every cell in your body. And recognize that as you exhale, the beings around you in the more than human world are soaking up your released carbon. So as you breathe, they are also receiving the gift of life that they need to grow as well. So as you're recognizing your own pattern of breathing, try to also notice that right now you are in this familiar space and shape of this thing that you know to be your own body. And really only you have ever experienced the feelings you know in your own body, the way you see the world around you from within your own body. So acknowledging how precious this body is that carries you through life. And notice what your body's doing right now. If you're standing, maybe you're shifting or swaying. If you're sitting, maybe you're rocking or twisting a little bit. But just notice, where can you feel the action happening in your body? And recognize what this action feels like. Whether you're turning or just still shifting in, maybe to get that comfortable fit. I invite you to use your sense of imagination, imagining that you are rooted to this spot from wherever you're sitting or standing, and that your roots are sinking down into the earth. And as they push through the soil beneath you, they're twisting around roots and rocks and whatever else might be below you. And as they move and twist and push, they're encountering all these new things below. And imagining, what might your roots be encountering beneath you? What other beings have stood in this exact same place over time? And what does it feel like rooted into the earth in this exact space, in your one and only body in this particular moment? Now consider opening your hands and holding your palms out in front of you, just kind of as if you've got like a cup. And imagine that you're holding the air in your hands, and let yourself feel that air and consider, what does it feel like? Is it heavy? Is it light? Maybe the temperature. And spend a few seconds holding the air and letting the air hold you back. Notice that the sensation of your palms and wherever the air is touching you is holding you in this space. You may want to gently move your hands back and forth to where you feel the air flowing through your fingertips. And so maybe notice as well that as you feel and hold the air is gently holding and supporting you at every point in your body. Now consider slowly bringing your palms together. I wonder what it feels like when your fingers touch one another, when skin touches skin. And if you're comfortable, you may want to bend down, reach over, touch something on the earth, run your fingers through the grass, touch a rock, maybe even pick something up from the soil or the grass if it's close enough to you. And consider, what textures do you feel as you explore this item? Without the benefit of sight, just using your sense of touch, what do you notice? And shifting our attention to our nose, how does the air smell here? If you picked up something earlier from the earth, you may want to smell that and see if it brings any memories to you. If not, have you picked up the scent of something on the air, and what might that smell like? And considering, where might that scent be coming from? Where has it traveled from to be able to reach you in this space here today? And maybe considering, does it bring a memory to your heart in some way, or a message from a faraway place? Now, we'd like to taste the air around us. And the easiest way is to pretend like you're sipping air in through a straw. So if you're feeling a little playful, you may want to suck that air up in through a straw and consider, what does the air taste like where you are? Maybe it's something you ate or drank earlier. If you're tasting something that you ate or drank, I wonder where it first originated on the land before making its very long journey into your body, providing you with the nourishment you need to be healthy. We're going to shift our attention to our ears. And I wonder what sounds you are hearing where you are. Maybe consider focusing in on the sound that's the loudest, and what might that be? Or straining really tight with your ears and seeing, what is the softest sound you can hear around you? But seeing, is there a rhythm or a melody to the sounds that you hear as you hear the combination of the songs and sounds around you? And are you creating sound? Consider elevating the sound of your own breath just enough so that only maybe you can hear it, but how does your breath contribute to the sounds around you? And with your eyes still closed, you may want to kind of Consider shifting the direction of your body, slowly twisting a little bit and turning very slowly. And noticing what the different directions feel like in your body. And notice which direction your body is drawn to. And just kind of when you feel a direction that feels good to you, just pause there. And without thinking, just let your body find that place and find the direction that kind of speaks to you or pulls to you. And consider placing your hand over your heart. And as you do this, pause and consider what it feels like to have a beating heart inside of your body. And I wonder what it's like to have your heart. And I wonder, without needing our vision, what the heart might be reaching towards in the direction that felt good for you. And I wonder what your heart is beating for right now. So not yet, but in a moment, I'm going to invite you to open your eyes. And I'd like you to do so like you're seeing things in front of you for the very first time, like you're waking up very slowly in the morning or at dawn when the darkness just so gradually turns into light. But as that's happening and you're ready to start opening your eyes, also imagine that everything you're gradually seeing is seeing you for the first time as well, very slowly as you recognize one another. So now, whenever you're ready, go ahead and gently open your eyes and look all around you, noticing up and down, and just take a few more breaths, comfortable at your own pace and your own rhythm. And when you're ready, we'll come back to our sharing circle. So with the completion of that first invitation, in our virtual sharing circle, we just have a very simple prompt for you, that you can put in the chat, and you can just put a few words if that's what's best for you, or you can type a phrase. But the prompt is what are you now noticing? And you can just put those in, and Laura and I will read them without your name as they come up. So as you're ready, just in the chat, you can type those and they'll pop up. There we go.
The leaves are breathing on the trees. How precious this vessel that carries my soul is, and the powerful connection it has to the rest of nature.
We had one that came as a direct message to me, hidden sounds or quieter ones under the louder sounds.
Thank you. The essence of the moist earth after a morning rain. All right, thank you. For our next invitation, we're going to invite you to slow down and notice what is in motion around you. It's easy to move through our days and our spaces and our tasks so quickly, and that can increase our stress. But we want you to silently explore the land and notice what is in motion and share nature's pace, which means you're going to move very slowly. And if at any time you feel yourself rushing as you explore, just simply stop for a moment before you continue. Use all of your senses and notice what is in motion around you. We'll be doing this for 10 minutes, and then we'll call you back with the sound of the drum. As we come back together, our prompt is the same. If you'll put it in the chat, a few words. What are you noticing?
The way the light looks right now. Light colors, deep and rich. Birds are happy. Our birds are happy too. Saw a flock of birds. Everything is in motion. The leaves, the air, the birds, the stillness of oak trees. My body. Leaves fluttering on the ground, the trees swaying in the wind, the warmth of the sun, the cooling breeze, the calmness of nature. I don't want to jump too fast if people are still typing, but bring those in. All right, thank you. For our next invitation, it's called From the Ground Up. And I like this one. If you're willing, consider taking off your shoes as you walk around. And this might depend where you are. But if not, just simply walk very slowly again. But this time you're specifically noticing the sounds, shifting in balance, and possibly the sensations as your body connects with different forms of the earth, different textures below your feet. So noticing from the ground up what you're feeling through the soles of your feet as you move through the space around you. And again, you can consider taking off your shoes for this one if you're able. And we'll call you back in about 10 minutes with the sound of the drum. And you can go ahead and turn off videos and sound until that time. Thank you. All right, thank you. Hopefully you were able to hear us calling you back to our virtual sharing circle. And for our sharing circle again, it's a very simple prompt. If you can put in the chat, what are you noticing now? And we'll read those as they come in, so you don't have to keep up with the reading.
Damp soil and spider webs catching the sunlight. You can hear a bird. Cool, crisp, small sounds. We walked barefoot in the grass and felt the cool softness. Grounded. Cool, energizing earth. All right, for our next invitation, there are shapes and patterns all around us, and we often miss those. Wander about and see what shapes and patterns your space is sharing with you today. We'll call you back in about 10 minutes with the sound of the drum. All right, as we come back together for our sharing circle, our prompt again, please feel free to put your response in the chat. What are you noticing about the hidden shapes?
Curves, fluid, long, thin, huge. Striations and small rocks and speckling on leaves. Shapes of shadows, leaves, tree roots, and trunk. Waves. The beautiful play of sunlight on the tree trunks. Height, fluidity. I feel like God has hidden hearts in nature for us to remind us of how much he loves us. Tree rings.
Thank you. So for our final invitation today, this one is my favorite. We invite you to find a spot to lie down on the grass or the soil, or you can sit back in a chair and look up. I wonder what you will see above you. So spend about 15 minutes this time sky gazing at whatever's above you. And we'll call you back in about 15 minutes with the sound of the drum.
All right, welcome back. And as we come back for our final sharing circle, we're going to actually not do it immediately after that invitation, but rather we're going to actually get set up for tea and do a final sharing circle all together. So if you'd like, feel free to open up your video so we can see where you're zooming in from and where you've been spending a little bit of your time this last hour or so. But as I'm reading a poem for you, we're going to be beginning our tea ceremony. And so I'd like for you to just kind of be thinking, what would make you feel complete? What kind of statement would you like to share that you think would make you feel complete? And while I'm reading and sharing this poem, feel free to put that into the chat, and then we'll read those as our final sharing circle. So this is a poem I really like. It's by Kai Seidenberg, and it's from a collection of his work, but it's When I Was a Creek. It's when I was a tree, I sang and danced with the wind and offered food and refuge to all who came. When I was a cloud, I floated freely, bringing shade and rain wherever they were needed. When I was a creek, I flowed effortlessly around stones and nourished life everywhere I went. When I was a seed, I held the story of what I would become inside me until the sun and rain let me know it was time to share it. When I was a flower, I opened up to reveal my beauty and invited the bees to share my sweetness. Now I am human and I can do so many things, yet I'm full of questions about who I am and why I'm here. So I just think that's a really nice poem that talks about a lot of the other elements of the more than human world and how humans are a part of that cycle and that system. When we talk about our tea ceremony, we talk about reciprocity. And if you've read Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, it explains that paying attention is a form of reciprocity with the living world. And so forest bathing, forest therapy is a form of reciprocity with that, because we are taking time to really see and pay attention to that other world. So if you've had some final thoughts that you would like to share to feel complete, or maybe something you were noticing in that last invitation, if you can put those in the chat, we'll share those with the group. And they don't have to be long. I can start by sharing that I loved being out in Laura's backyard. I have 2 dogs that run off my birds, and so I really loved having the birds just all over the place this morning. And I'm very grateful that each of you took time on a Saturday morning to spend this time with us and to learn a little bit more about forest therapy. And hopefully it's some strategies you can use in your own life.
We've got contrast of the dark tree branches against the bright blue sky. I saw the greatness of the universe, breathtaking. Finally, I felt the non-human world all around me. Canopy over me, the earth circling under me. I was safe, and I finally relaxed and let the calm in. Your setting is very peaceful. Thank you.
So with that, in the spirit of reciprocity, when we end with a traditional Japanese tea ceremony, again, that's pulling from the origins of Shinrin-Yoku that Laura talked about earlier. And the tradition there is to steep a tea with something that you would gather from the area. So typically make mine with rosemary, passion flower, and a little bit of mint. That's usually what I can pull out of my yard. And then it's also some things that we can find on our campus that when we do this with our students, we're able to share with them as well. And so we just steep that in a tea. And you may notice that some snacks here. So if you've got some snacks at your own location, you're welcome to have those. But we also have 3 teacups. So we have one for each of us. And the third one is for the land. And so in that last round, what we imagine is that all your words of gratitude absorb into this cup, and we feed this back to the land as a thank you gift for what was provided today as we did our walk. And there was something else that came in as a last share: slowing down, being still, and paying attention to the world of nature all around reminded me of just how alive nature is. Sorry, I'm reading from a distance. So much is going on all around us that we don't notice. Thank you. So with that, our last was a little bit closer. We share that first cup that's full of all of the gratitude to the land. So that goes back to her. And then from there, if wherever you are, if you have a bottle of water or something that you're drinking, you can just maybe say a thank you of gratitude, or think it in your head and share that with the land as well, to practice that spirit of reciprocity. And then, like in our instance with the tea that we have, I'm never sure how it's going to turn out. As you bring that back into your body, you're again sharing that life force with the land. What the land has provided is in the tea, and we bring that directly into our body and throughout our bodies. And so that basically finishes the formal portion of the forest bathing walk. And I can put in the chat some resources for you. We have a resource folder with some different articles that might help you understand a little bit more about the research that was done in Japan and how they're using forest therapy here in the States. And then our email, natureconnectionsofsa@gmail.com, where you can reach us. Our website's in a bit of a crash right now, but we can send that to Sarah at another date. So that would end the formal part of the forest walk. And at this point, if we were together in a location, we would just be sitting in a circle, and it would be time to visit and ask questions and or share experiences and stories that we would all like to hear. So we're going to move ourselves back to the table so that we can see all of you. And we invite everybody to go ahead and just unmic, and we can have a conversation. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions, whether it's about how we use this, our training.
The research.
Pretty open. We're open.
Research, the mechanisms that they think are happening when we're outside that help us with these benefits, whatever is on your mind. We're here to help and answer.
Can you share the resource with us by email? I think we can share a link to the folder to Sarah. Yes. And she can do that in a follow-up email. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
And I just want to say that this is so timely, and I thank you. I have a little bit of allergies, sorry, but I really needed this. I'm a certified nature teacher from Arifans, but I had to go out of state to do it. And it just helps me reconnect and realize that I've lost a lot of that because I'm not with others that believe and care. And so for this busy world that I've been in lately, this is just what I needed. And so it's going to help me continue to practice. I have a hard time meditating inside. Now I know where I need to be.
Rhonda, where did you say you were before this? Before coming?
Well, I got my certification as a nature forest school teacher or certification. It, it was in Ohio.
Okay. Yes.
And I always have to go out of Texas to get to it.
We've been doing some work with some colleagues at University of Washington, and they've got a whole college of nature and well-being, and we had to fight tooth and nail, it seems like, to get a course. And so,
Yeah.
yes, because it's just a different, and Texas isn't quite there yet in a
No.
lot of things.
And just let me add, I was on a meeting this week on a professional learning community we were all sharing. And this is what somebody was so excited that instead of letting infants touch sand, that they found out that they could grind Cheerios up and it felt like sand. And it just broke my heart. No, I'm sorry. It broke my heart because I wanted to say, no, that's not sand, but they're not there yet. Right. But I'm not going to say anything, because if that's the start they have to get out to sand and let infants touch sand, but be there so they don't eat it, I think that's where we're going to have to start here in Texas.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is why the work that Texas Children in Nature Network is doing, I think, is so critical and important.
Yes.
Because it pushes, and like you said, it might push someone a very baby step, but it's a
Very
step and
baby.
it's moving forward.
But
So,
it's coming. Yeah.
Thank you, Gina.
thanks.
A couple of questions for y'all. I just first wanted to say thank you so much for doing this. I got a lot out of it this morning. It was also very timely for me. My first question was, what was the name of the program y'all did to become a certified forest guide?
It's the Association of Nature and Forest
Forest
Therapy, and they've recently changed their
Yeah, you can just find it by Googling.
yeah, you can do ANFT.earth, I think it is now. There are multiple out there. There are some that are shorter certification programs. We chose this one because they specifically focused in a lot on trauma-informed practice. And we wanted to use this with students who are bringing a lot of trauma with them, especially after COVID and, K-12 settings and bullying and, in the schools. And so the trauma-informed practice was really important to us. There are other ones out there. I think some of them are probably very good. But we did ANFT, and they have ongoing
Cohorts.
trainings of cohorts all the time. So,
And what they do is the first, your
6 months.
training, the first 6 months is online. And then you do an immersion for a week. And we went a year ago, October, to north of Prescott, Arizona, to do our immersion, which was really fun and interesting. And
It's snowy.
Guys, yes, it snowed. And we had, hardly any facilities. We won't go with that. But anyway, there's ones you can go to that were more luxurious, but that fit our schedule. So what was your second question, Gina?
Yeah, every invitation we did, I was just wondering, have y'all noticed that there's one invitation in particular that seems to be more beneficial to maybe a certain population, or like does every invitation target something a little different? Like, can you just speak more on those?
Well, actually, part of the training is learning how to write them.
Mhm.
And so it's very different if I say, go out and see what shapes you find versus go find 5 different shapes. Because if I say go find 5 different shapes, I've now put you back into your cognitive element of your brain. And what we want to do for forest therapy is to kind of shut off that frontal lobe, shut down the cognitive function so that it can rest and open the senses. So writing them in a certain way, is a way to be careful with that. But I would say, and you can't always say like, okay, I'm going to go out and do these today, because we got out to one day and it was like, it was going to be sky gazing and it was getting ready to storm, they're like the different ones that okay, that one's not going to be a good fit today. That's not what the land is wanting us to really focus on today. So we kind of have some in our back pocket. But I don't know if there's one that's most beneficial, but the favorite one
is the sky gazing.
is the sky gazing.
Yes. We do
Yeah.
a lot with all type. We do a lot of teachers, we do groups, we do students, we do a lot of,
We had principals last week.
we do a lot of this. And I would say across the board, the sky gazing with all groups is the favorite, because people just don't, they're just saying like, I don't lie down on the ground anymore,
Yeah.
you know.
Or I can't remember the last time I
did
just
that.
watched the clouds. And
So that is often a favorite. In our most of these we do are in person, and in those, another one they like is we have magnifying glasses we give people and ask them to explore the details of things, and they like that's pretty popular too.
Cool. Great. Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thanks.
being here.
Where you coming in from, Gina?
I'm here in Austin.
Okay. Other questions for us? We love talking about this. We could talk about it all day.
Well, I just want to tell Gina, Austin's way ahead. I love going
Yeah.
to Austin. Oh man, you all are wonderful.
Thank you so much.
It's just amazing.
Well,
It's nice to hear that reframe, because yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of questionable things happening all around right now. Thank you for saying that.
that's all around Texas, I think,
Yeah.
right now. But if you haven't registered for the TCIN in conference, that's in December in Austin. So if you're like a fan of like,
Yes.
yeah, I love Austin, it's going to be in Austin,
Yeah.
and we'll be doing an in-person walk at Peace Park. And I was just looking at that on the website, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this park is amazing.
I know.
So I'll be going up Thanksgiving to explore that a little bit and see where the best spaces are going to be. But
Yeah. She put
oh,
that in
did she say something at the summit?
She
I'm
said that, yeah.
I'm right there with you, Sarah. And so, yes,
Good
so
board member.
we'll be doing one of these in person on that Wednesday afternoon, the first day of the summit. But there's also a lot of other sessions on that first day that are out and about in Austin, looking at schoolyards and their biking trails, and there's just a menagerie of different experiences that you could tap into in the Austin area. So.
Questions or just thoughts you have?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
You talked about the invitations, and are the ones that you write for children much different than the ones you write for adults?
Yes and no. We might speak more with adults and do a little more explaining, I think, but it still wouldn't be much different. Like shapes, like you see shapes all the time everywhere we are. Like, I wonder what kind of shapes you'll find in nature.
I think the vocabulary,
yeah,
we are more careful with our vocabulary just to make sure they understand, especially if we're explaining what this is and those types of things, you know, with the wording, make sure the vocabulary is on their grade level and things like that. But for the most part, they are much easier than adults because they get this, right? I think this was most of our worlds when we were younger, right?
That's right.
The problem is once we get older, and I'm including myself in this because I grew up in Northwest Arkansas in the mountains, but I've been in San Antonio for almost 30 years, and it's just so easy to get away and removed from it without realizing what's happened to you. So
that's actually the first unit we do in the course that we teach. We teach a course in natural environment and well-being. And the first unit we do is how have we removed ourselves so far from the land? And our students go back about 2 generations and kind of map either their family or a chosen family, you know, that they can pick, and see how they've moved into this this more urbanized setting, because we know about 80% of the world lives in an urban setting. And so this is something you can do. It's great to do it in an ancient forest, believe me. Like leading these in Oregon, it just makes my heart so happy. But you can also do it in a pocket park in a city. You can do it in a backyard, as you've seen like here today. You can just find little tiny spaces and do these invitations on your own and make that connection. So
I have a
Thank
quick
you.
question. When
Sure.
you talked about the tea ceremony, I sort of didn't hear everything. We had a little bit of stuff going on here. So you said reciprocity to the earth with the 3rd cup of tea. And how do you do that? Did you pour it on the ground, or did you just give a tribute to the earth with it? Or what do you do with that?
We just poured it back into the ground.
Okay.
But I did have someone when we did one of our immersions, they actually, as they offered those elements of gratitude back to the earth for the tea, they they walked around the entire circle that we were sitting in and just sprinkled it behind every person back into the land. And that was another cool way to kind of do it. But yes, we pour those words of gratitude and those emotions and feelings back into the land. And at the same time, then you're taking what the land has offered into your own body.
Thank you so much. That's really beautiful ceremony. Appreciate it.
Rhonda, in the chat, you said not praising anybody specifically in the circle. And that was really hard for us to learn to do. And that was something they focused on a lot in the training, is that whether it's a pass or I don't share, or somebody shares something and you think, huh, that, but that every response is welcome and equally valued. And so we had to learn to take off our teacher hats and put on guide hats with that.
Yeah, that was hard, but it's really helped me, honestly, teaching all classes, just to realize that people come to everything from such a different place, and to just validate their experience, whether it's what you hope they get or not. You can't negate someone's experience and how they experience something. It's valid, and to make sure they feel validated with that, I think, is really important. Any other questions or thoughts?
For those of you that, I'm sorry, I was gonna say, for those of you that opened your cameras, I love seeing where everybody is. I'm not sure where.
Somebody had a question.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
She's on the beach.
CSS. Are you at the beach? C Stark.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I live on the Bolivar Peninsula.
Okay, I was gonna say, it looks like a beach behind you. That looks very nice. Okay, I'm so sorry, Gina. I think I interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay. I guess I'm just more curious about the research. Like y'all had mentioned, forest therapy can help with rumination. Is that including individuals living with OCD, or?
Yes, there's so much research, and some of the links we're going to share have some of that in there. We put in some of the, I think the latest studies that kind of summarize things. One of the theories, there's different theories about what the mechanisms are and what's going on, right? And basically the gist of it that most people think is it's a synergistic effect of all of these theories, plus what's not happening. For example, a lack of population density when you're out in nature, a lack of pollution, and just, in other words. But the theory that Courtney and I really feel like makes sense to us is called attention restoration theory, that was originally proposed by the Kaplans quite some time ago in the 80s and 90s. And that basically is the idea that being out in nature helps reduce mental fatigue. And the reason we like this is it really fits well with our students. Our 21st century life, all of us, is very, very frontal. In our frontal lobe is where all of our executive functions are. And it's pretty much on all the time in our lives today. We don't have time where we shut that off very often. And just whether it's our work or just task switching back and forth from your phone and things like that, it drains all of your glucose and your energy. And so this theory says that being out in nature actually allows that part of our brain to rest, and it uses other parts of our brain to notice the things around us. So that's the idea of getting out of your head, getting into your body, that we kind of went through with all this process, and that allows you to kind of rest that frontal lobe and refill it so that you feel recharged, relaxed, and things like that, which we don't. I think we think our world is, certainly the world our students are in, doesn't allow that. We're always on, if that makes sense. We're always available now with all of our technology and all of those types of things. And that's what we're seeing, is how bad that is for us. So that's that theory. There's other theories and other things going on, like the fight inside that we talked about. That's actually been shown with cortisol blood response and things like that, that the phytoncides help us and increase our immunity. But the attention restoration is the one that we feel like makes the most sense, and it helps our students really can grab onto that and say, yes, that makes sense for us. So that's one of the ones that we feel like has some validity, and it does have quite a bit of research behind it.
And I haven't read any research that specifically uses rumination just with like OCD specifically, but I know when we use it with our students, we do have students who are diagnosed with OCD and quite another, broad range of emotional well-being challenges. And so across the board, when we do scales of rumination with our students, it's statistically significant across the board. And we also chose rumination specifically because it links so tightly with anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And our students are so smart and so bright, but they are so driven and never stopping. And so they're not leaving Trinity because they can't handle the academic load. They're leaving because of their anxiety and the pressure. And so specifically wanted to target strategies that would proactively help in that way. So, like I said, I haven't read anything that specifically says like OCD and rumination, but all of those kind of go together. And so if it's helping you not have that repetition in your brain of repeating and repeating and repeating and ruminating on specific ideas or thoughts or actions, then that's definitely going to be a huge benefit.
Yeah, it also being outside also calms the amygdala, which is our fight or flight, oh my gosh, something's wrong. It tends to be more active in people with anxiety and OCD and things like that as well. So I think one of the articles we put in there has a summary of a number of different studies and different things they found, for example, ADHD and different things, as well as physical, social, emotional, and cognitive benefits that they have found with that.
That's what I don't get. Is like, even with schools, if they just want test scores to go up, there's still evidence that shows it'll do that too. So yeah, it has a wide range.
Yeah, thank y'all. And like y'all had mentioned just how busy our current society is and just everything going off and all this stimulation. Like when I was doing the invitations outside in my backyard, it was like car horns and people talking and like the gas station sounds down the street. And I could just feel my attention being pulled in so many directions. And every time it just felt like, okay, I was getting stimulated in a different way. And it was just amazing to me how much was happening. And like, I can only imagine how much we're even unconsciously picking up on like all the sounds and the pings and the flashing lights and everything. It's just, yeah, it's a lot.
And Gina, I'll share with this one thing that we've just started. Well, I won't say just started. We had a research assistant who looked at this all summer, but our students did at least 10 sit spots over last fall over the semester, and they would just do a short kind of journaling after, and we analyzed those journal responses. And the first 3 to 4, the highest theme that came out of their responses was the distractibility. Everything's distracting me. I can't do this. This is like, you want me to sit still? I've got a biochem test. It's just like all this stuff where they couldn't do it. And then we did the full walk with them. And then we immediately started seeing in their sit spots a decrease in the mentioning of the distractions around them. Like it just took that element of practice for them to be able to, because now I can
define a sit spot the way we
oh,
define
sorry. Sit spot is they go and they revisit a certain place. Hopefully it's the same place, but it can be other places if you need to be over time. And they sit for 30 minutes minimum with no phone, no homework, no friend. And you can have a friend in iView, like parallel play with little kids, like just for safety issues if they want to, because they're going to a park or something, but it's silent and you're paying attention and noticing the details of what's around you. And for them, many of them in the beginning, it is just desperately hard. And the distractions are that, like I said, the main thing that showed up in their journal entries or their reflections. But then once they had a little bit of practice with it, you can see that shift, and you'll still have the car horns and the gas station, but for some reason, like the birds are louder, or the squirrels rustling through the bushes become louder and kind of overshadow some of those other distractions that we have in our daily life, depending on where your sensory focus is.
And one thing, there are different elements of the attention restoration theory that make it work. And one of the things is either being away or having a sense of being away, being in another world. So while it's good, my sit spot is in my backyard here. And yes, I can hear the road a little ways away and things like that. But the more immersed you can be occasionally, like if you can go out like to a state park or something where you really, like we took our students this year for a full day to Pedernales Falls State Park, which is one of my favorite. It's outside of Austin. And there is no cell phone reception. So that's the best thing. I mean,
That was the purpose.
yeah, we tell them, we always tell them no phones, but they couldn't use them anyway. But really you feel so immersed there, right? Like you're away from so many things. So when you can do that, that is more, we'll say more ideal. And just one thing I wanted to mention, there's some really good research now on exposure and time. And what we're finding is 120 minutes a week is the minimum you need. And around 300 to 400 minutes is like a max. That's the max, you get the max benefit. And what that means, time out in nature. But the key here is that you don't have to do that all at once. It's 120 minutes. It can be 30 minutes here, 20 minutes there. And the sweet spot, 300 to 400 minutes, you don't really find any more benefit of staying outside longer than that within a week. But for a long time, we really weren't sure, like, how long do you need to be out to get these benefits? And that's a pretty solid study. It's large. And so, I mean, again, everybody's individual, right? What you need is not the same.
Biological benefits too, right? Or is it all?
Yeah, you get all, many of benefits from being outside, from the physical to the emotional and all that kind of stuff. So that's something that we try to have our students do. And I try to think about that, is if I'm getting in my outside enough, you know.
Laura and Courtney, I wanted to just thank you for the section on where we put our feet barefoot in the ground. I work with students as well and have done digital wellness trainings over the last decade. And I can't tell you how much I'm seeing a shift with kids that don't have any connection with nature. And we've recommended taking your shoes off and socks off and go sit out in the grass, do your homework, stand in the grass, you know, finding creative ways to get outdoors, because that's not what they're doing. They're coming home from school and getting on iPads and playing games. And so we're just trying to give them creative ways. And so many of them at first they think we're crazy, and they say, I can't believe you're telling me to take my socks and shoes off and stand in the grass. Yes, do it. It's going to detox your body. You know, we talk about all the physical and mental benefits from it. And it's just really, the next day we hear from them, they're like, we did it. And it was amazing. I've never done that before. High school students even. So I loved that section of it. I just thought and how you said, I wrote it down because you said, taking your shoes off and then feeling the shapes underneath your feet, because everybody has such different ground that they're standing on. So I thought that was really interesting.
That's what I love that one. And we haven't used that one in a walk in a while. And I was like, oh, maybe if it rains, because here in San Antonio, it rained last night. So I was like, oh, the ground's going to be a little damp. That'll be awesome. But,
yeah.
We take our students out, and I take all my classes outside quite a bit. When I knew we were going into COVID, I spent every last dime I had in my PD fund on yoga mats and cut those in half. And so we take those out. It's from my Girl Scout mom days for sit-up-ons, you know, and if I'm outside with them, I'm usually barefoot. And at first they would kind of look at me, and then a few more would start taking off their shoes. And
yeah, it's kind of weird for a professor to take their shoes off. Right. But yeah, it's good for them.
And that goes really well with our last summit with Balanced and Barefoot. is that we're even seeing a lot of, vestibular pieces and, little kids not being allowed to be barefoot in the grass. And so how that is something that contributes to our healthy development, from a very young age. And so that doesn't change as you get older. That's still very beneficial to all those developmental pieces. So, yeah.
We probably need to do that as we get older so we don't
Yeah.
fall. I'm not sure. I don't know that.
Well, I was saying I've had a lot of foot surgeries, a lot. Like I was in a car wreck, I've broken toes and had joint replacements and everything. And the best therapy I ever have is walking on the beach, like barefoot, just because it forces me to use all those pieces that I dig my toes in, and it's in between my feet, and just the sensory piece of what's happening on the lower part of my body is so exaggerated, I guess, with that yeah, we need it.
It's like natural memory foam with your
Yeah.
the shape of the sand.
Yes, definitely. But I'm glad some of y'all tried that. I know some people were like, barefoot? I don't think so. Sarah, is there anything else you'd like for us to cover? I know we've got a little bit of time left, but before if there aren't, I'm not sure if there are more questions left, but if there aren't, is there anything else you want us to touch upon?
I don't see any more questions. I think y'all have touched on quite a bit. I know you've talked a little bit about your class, but maybe touch on maybe a little bit of the overall research and the paper that y'all have been working on, if you wouldn't mind.
Well,
Which paper?
Probably, I think the research brief probably that's coming
Yeah.
out.
Well, yeah, we have a research brief that should be out like now. It should
Last
have been out
week.
like last year, with the Learning Policy Institute, which is Linda Darling Hammond's group out of Stanford. And we talk in there a little bit about our research, but we talk about different ways we've used it with our students. We've used it with pre-service teachers, and we've taken them out for a full day and done different pre and post measures with them. We've done, Courtney and I also teach child development, and we've taken them out, randomized our classes, and took half of them to walk downtown by the bus station and half of them to walk for an hour in a natural area park, and given them different measures. And
We thought that one would bust because the ones that went downtown in the urban area were so excited because they stumbled upon a pop-up Dia de los Muertos festival. And so they were super excited and happy when they came back, and we thought, well, that's going to blow the research.
It didn't. It still showed that the people that went out and walked for an hour just in it was at Medina River natural area, which is south of town here, was still more significant for their well-being and the things that we're talking about. Those were measures mainly of mood, different measures of mood. And so we do that. And then we talk about our class, which we're teaching it for the second time this fall. And the class intentionally combines content like the research we're talking about. And then we have them collect their own pre and post data from the full day we go out and see does this really, so the research says it helps, does it help you personally? So we show them the class data, but then Courtney's really good, she cuts their code number in strips so that they can see their actual individual data as well.
With the little arrows of like, you would assume it to go up or down because, you reverse code some of these things. And on the survey, it's like, you want it to go up, you want it to go down, so they can see exactly if there's followed the trends that you would see.
And then the last part of the course is practice. So 50% of the class we guarantee will be outside in natural areas. So we take lots of field trips. And we go to places like the Botanical Garden, we go to urban parks here. We go like to educational settings like the zoo school here, because we talk about children in nature and what we need to do with them, a little bit like Courtney was talking about a minute ago. And then we have assignments like the sit spot to help them develop practices that we hope will continue. And so part of our research right now is we're going to follow up with them in the spring and see if they're still doing any of these things.
Our first group will be now a year out, so we want to follow up with them to see.
So we'll see, but it's a pretty popular class. We have long wait list and we're excited about that. It's a really hard class to teach because there's so many moving parts and we are exhausted and feel, I don't know about you, Courtney, I feel very old. We teach it on Wednesdays from 2:30 to 5:30. And then when I get home on Wednesday night, I'm just done.
I
Like,
still have a
totally
wagon
done.
in my car because I just haven't had the energy to get it out yet.
Yeah, we have one of those wonderful wagons. I think we got it from Academy or wherever, you know, the cloth with the steel that we drag everywhere with us with all of our stuff in it. So we're really trying to make a difference for the students. And I think for most of them, they do see the benefit and are doing well with that.
Rhonda, one thing you mentioned is that we're kind of very often when we do these, if you self-select to be here on a Saturday morning, this is kind of your thing, or you've got an interest in it, right?
Right. Oh, yes.
So, you know, we know there's that factor. One of the reasons we're really excited about this research brief is, I don't know how many of you are in the education field, but Linda Darling Hammond was Obama's pick for Secretary of Education. And she turned that down to continue her work at Stanford in the Learning Policy Institute. So the idea that this is now coming out as a research brief on the education field side, to us is a big win, because
Courtney, I agree totally, because that's what I was putting in the evaluation. That's what we need, because even my husband, you gave us permission to go barefoot, so I did. Okay,
Yeah.
now in my training, up in Ohio, they all went barefoot all the time. And here's my husband, you could get an infection, blah, 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 whatever, you know, and I'm sitting here going, I've got to educate him, because we went barefoot all the time when I was growing up.
It's
And
good
so
for you.
it's like they get scared about all of this. So the research is what needs to come so that people don't just stop and say, that's not for me.
and that's another reason we put the research back in our students' hands. I mean, they are 18 to 22 and they're totally egocentric, which is not a bad thing. I mean, they're supposed to be. That's where they are. They're adolescents still. And so that's cool. But when you give them all this research that says, look at all these things happening around the world, they're like, I am unique. I am, you know, an individual. And so when you put their own data back in their hand and they can see this is how their own body and emotions changed, that's actually, I think, been really powerful, because they're like, oh, this must have been right after the hornet stung me, or, you know, or was around me or whatever. And they're all over 18, so they can sign their own waivers, which is awesome. But no, we really appreciate y'all being here on a
Yes,
Saturday
thank
morning.
you.
We know, I don't know, our weeks are getting so exhausting. So anybody in education, and I'm sure in many other fields, you're really strapped by the end of the week. So thank you so much for spending this time with us this morning. We hope you're able to get some ideas, and maybe we'll see you at the conference and we'll do one in person with you, or you can
Or
take,
just come say hello if you see us.
yeah. And we'll send
thanks.
Sarah the links to all the resources and things so that you can access those.
Yeah, and we recorded, so we'll put this recording in the email as well. So if y'all want to refer back to it and do it again later, you are more than welcome to do so. And so you'll be getting an email from Alice probably midweek next week. With all that stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is one thing we do with our students. If they're having a hard time getting into a sit spot or something, I have my voice recording of the Pleasures of Presence, which is the first one we did, to kind of it's almost like a guided meditation to kind of walk you into your senses. So if you are trying to do some of these, or you are having a problem with the distractions, if you want to re-listen to that kind of helps you walk yourself down and get into the body so that your brain can kind of start to turn itself off.
Right. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
y'all. Have a fantastic Saturday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.